We were in Siem Reap, located in the northwest of Cambodia. It is the second largest city in Cambodia, with a population of 245,000 people. On our second evening, we hired a nice and friendly tuk-tuk driver called Pich for more days to drive us around. One day, we decided to go to Tonlé Sap, which is Cambodia's most important waterway and Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake. Pich picked us up early in the morning outside our hotel and drove us to the village Kampong Phluk. Once you turn off the main road, Highway 6, you'll travel down an unpaved dirt road through the Cambodian town of Rulos. There is a small local market here where you can shop if you are interested in seeing what Cambodian life is really like outside of Siem Reap. It was 26 kilometers and 1 hour drive along a bumpy, unpaved dirt road and extremely dusty at times. The soil had red rust color and several places were under repair. This area would probably be flooded in the rainy season. A car is much more comfortable, but we preferred to make the journey by tuk-tuk because it's a more immersive experience as you ride through the Cambodian countryside. We saw several large green rice paddies along the road. After passing through Rolus, you have about 10 more minutes of driving before you reach a government ticket office, where you'll need to purchase your tickets to visit Kampong Phluk. The cost of visiting Kampong Phluk is $20 per person for the boat ticket and $2 per person for the community entrance fee. I found the price for our boat trip of just over 1.5 hours by private boat was quite expensive. Unfortunately, it's unclear how this money is split between the Cambodian government, the boat driver, and the local community. We assume the government keeps a large portion of it. I still tipped off the boat driver a little tip after the trip. The smile I got in return was warm and friendly. Once you're on board, you'll have a short boat ride out to the stilt village. You'll soon be passing some of the newer government buildings and a school, all situated 20 feet above the ground on concrete supports. In the Tonlé Sap River, which passes Siem Reap and connects downstream to the Mekong near the capital Phnom Penh, something strange happens during the rainy season. Then the Mekong River fills up so heavily that the water flows in the tributary river. Tonlé Sap River then runs and goes upstream and fills up Tonlé Sap Lake. The lake grows, the water level rises by 10 meters and the area increases to fourfold, and the lake and riverbanks move up to 5 kilometres. As we got closer to the village, the number of houses on the riverbanks increased, and they were all built on stilts. Simple houses mainly built from corrugated iron sheets. I have never seen this kind of construction of propellers before. The propeller was driven by a long chain on a steel frame that protruded far behind the boat. On the opposite side of the river, we observed some people preparing casting nets for fishing, while others were collecting fish out of their casting nets on the muddy riverbanks. The town itself is a hodgepodge of buildings rising out of the water on a network of pillars and semi-permanent scaffolding. Some houses look fairly new, while others appear as though they might collapse at any moment. Every house had their own boat, at least one, some even more. Among the rows of stilt houses, we saw the residents of Kampong Phluk doing their daily businesses, washing and drying laundry, untangling fish nets, and shuttling kids to and from school. Kampong Phluk, which means harbour of the tusks, a reference to one of the breeds of fish that live here in the Siem Reap River, and the village is home to about 700 families with a total population of around 3,500 people. Everything in this town is built 10 meters above land or is designed to float so it can rise and fall with the water level of the Tonle Sap Lake. Some people refer to Kampong Phluk as a floating village, which isn't really accurate. All the buildings are built on high pilings, so depending on the water level of the Tonle Sap, it might have the appearance of a floating village. The Tonle Sap is a combined lake and river that is of great importance for Cambodia's agriculture and inland fishing. It seems like the majority of the inhabitants here are engaged in fishing in some way or the other. This area is home to many Cambodians of Vietnamese origin who live in floating villages on boats by the lake. Most of the fishermen on Tonle Sap Lake are of Vietnamese origin. They have lived in Cambodia for a long time and are the main suppliers of the country's fishery market. They had to flee to Vietnam during the Khmer Rouge reigning era from 1975 to 1979. After the downfall of the regime, they returned and continued to fish in the Tonle Sap. As well as being an important source of food and a vital tool for Cambodian irrigation, the lake itself is home to 170 floating villages that depend on fishing for their livelihood, with homes built directly on the water. The village has its own Buddhist temple that is a central part of the community. Kampong Phluk is not an amusement park. It is a community with a unique lifestyle, a way of life where they must adapt to the rising and sinking water level of the lake, and for many a daily struggle. We approached it with respect and an open mind, witnessing how people live with so little yet carry so much dignity made us reflect on our lives and privileges. As we passed these two boats, the one towing the other, both with women and children aboard, I realized that this tour wasn't about our entertainment. It was about learning, understanding, and showing empathy. There are a number of flooded mangrove forests on the edges of the Tonle Sap, accounting for 3% of the basin area, but the one at Kampong Phluk is the largest in the Siem Reap province. The floodplain is surrounded by low hills and covered with evergreen or deciduous seasonal tropical plants. Farther from the lake, the forest gradually turns into a thicket and finally into a meadow. The trees in the forest have adapted to the rising and falling water level of the lake. Tonle Sap is the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia and one of the most diverse and productive ecosystems in the world. It was designated as a Biosphere Reserve by UNESCO in 1997 due to its high biodiversity. We were dropped off at a floating restaurant at the mouth of the river. At the backside of the restaurant, we saw loads of smaller boats or barges with local ladies eager to take you on a 30-minute ride through the forest. The fee is set by the government at $5 per person, and the small rowboats can handle a maximum of 2 guests per boat. Some of the ladies had even hung up their own hammock between some trees in the wood. All the small boats had strong blue and orange colors. The restaurant boat also had their own crocodile farm. A boat driver told me there were no longer wild crocodiles in the lake, only on farms. The crocodiles I saw did not have much space to move around in their pit. There is also a store selling crocodile skin products. It's honestly a bit of a sad affair, but you can purchase bits of chicken to feed the crocodiles if that's your wish. Our original boat picked us up at the restaurant, and the driver had his own way of starting the motor. He then drove us out a few hundred meters onto the Tonlé Sap Lake. There isn't much to see, but it's pretty cool to get a feel for just how huge this lake really is. We could not see the banks on the other side of the lake. The size and the water volume of the lake varies greatly through the year, with a minimum area of about 2,500 to 3,000 square kilometers in the dry season, and the water body expands in the rainy season, increasing the depth to 9 to 14 meters. The maximum area is 16,000 square kilometers. At the end of the dry season, the Tonlé Sap Lake has a typical depth of 1 to 2 meters. As the monsoon rain begins in June, the water level of the river begins to rise, eventually reversing the flow of the river. The water level of the Tonlé Sap increases by about 10 meters. At the end of the rainy season in November, the flow of the Mekong gradually decreases, and the flow of the Tonlé Sap then reverses and begins to replenish the flow of the Mekong. The lake is home to around 300 species of fish, 11 of which are globally endangered. The Mekong giant catfish, which lives in the Tonlé Sap Lake, is one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. A fisherman caught a Mekong giant catfish weighing nearly 294 kilo or 648 pounds in May 2004, but its population has been declining since the mid-1970s. It's currently illegal for fishermen to catch and retain Mekong giant catfish, and only a few are used for scientific research. The mudbanks created by the flooding of Tonlé Sap are extremely fertile, and local rice farmers have developed a deep-water rice that is unique to this area. Water from the Tonlé Sap also provides rice farmers with water for irrigation. The fresh layers of silt deposited after each flood serves as an ideal fertilizer. The abundance provided by Tonlé Sap, some historians have theorized, is one reason why the Angkor civilization was so great and was able to sustain itself for so long. Tonlé Sap also offers a suitable nesting place for snakes, turtles, and many waterfowl. Storks, ibis, pelicans, sundamarabu, and grey pelicans are native here. I wish we had better time so that we maybe could observe some of this animal life. At the northwestern tip of the lake lies a 312 square kilometer tall bird sanctuary. Thousands of migratory birds are drawn to this place every year. From January to April during the breeding season, it's high season here, a paradise for ornithologists. Today, Tonlé Sap is affected by rapid economic development, population growth, deforestation, loss of habitat, pollution, and climate change. This also is the case over most areas in Southeast Asia. Approximately 1.2 million people live in the area around Tonlé Sap. We had only been there for a few hours and had gotten a small glimpse of the lake the village, the people and their daily life. On our way back, we both agreed that the day trip to the stilt village of Kampong Phluk and the nearby flooded forest on the edge of Tonlé Sap Lake was the perfect way to break up several days of exploring temples. We enjoyed the tour and found it an absolute must-see, offering a glimpse into the lives of the people who call this ever-changing landscape home. If we ever come back, we would also like to visit some of the other floating villages around the lake, and better during the rainy season when the lake is at its largest. After a day full of impressions and memories, Pich Pich took us the bumpy and dusty way back to Siem Reap. We passed the fertile rice fields where they can harvest 2 and maybe 3 times a year. We watched canals for irrigation as well as the road being repaired. School children driving on their bicycles home from school were waving at us with a friendly smile on their faces.